In this video, I want to show you how to replace database polling with RabbitMQ. So let's talk about what database polling is. So here I have a database, and inside this database I have a table that serves as a way to capture some requests. And then I have the process that puts data into this database. And then I also have another process that queries this table for any new data that is coming in. So that means this process, right, needs to be run periodically. So it could be, you can do it every minute, you can do it every second, or you can do it every 1 hour. Right? So for every 1 hour, these types of jobs are known as batch jobs. They wake up, they run every hour, and then they basically process any data that is pending. Right? So in this case, this process here is not efficient because it has to keep polling the database. When it polls the database, most of the time there's no data, right? That's why it's inefficient. Okay, so how do we replace that with RabbitMQ? Okay, so instead of using a database, we may want to use a queue because that table that we see acts as a queue. Okay, so let's see how we can use RabbitMQ to make this more efficient. Right, so with RabbitMQ, we can introduce a queue. Alright, so I have this RabbitMQ, and internally I'm going to create a queue. So this is going to be my queue, and this is going to be RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is a message broker, right, that manages a bunch of queues. In this case, I can have my first process send the data to the database, and then also publish an event message to the queue, right? And then from there, we can have this other process here, which is supposed to process that data, read from the queue. And then once it gets that event, it can actually then query the database for that data. So in this case, we can avoid all this polling, right? Because we're going to have this process that will run all the time. And so this will be a background process, right? Or a daemon process that will run all the time. Or it's also known as a server process. So we can run that process all the time or whenever we need it, because the benefits of using RabbitMQ is that your consumer doesn't have to be online when the data is put into the queue, right? And then RabbitMQ will basically persist the data until the consumer is online to be able to consume that data. Given this architecture, do we really need a database table, right? And the answer most likely is no, but it depends on your circumstance. If you still need to persist the data in the database for some other consumption, then you may still need that database. But if you use a database table as a job queue, and once you finish the processing the data, you actually delete the record from the database, or you mark it as finished and never touch it again, right? That means that you don't really need a database. You really need a job queue. And that's basically what this RabbitMQ is very good at doing. Right? So in this case, if you do not need a database, you can actually just remove the database from your design. Once you remove the database from your design, you can actually just send messages to the queue that encompasses the data and the event. And then from there, that consumer would then receive that message and process it and then post it downstream. So that is how you can replace your database polling with RabbitMQ. Database polling is inefficient, and RabbitMQ will make your design more scalable. Right? The other benefit of using the RabbitMQ as a replacement for database polling is that you can actually use the queue with multiple consumers to have multiple workers. So in this case, I can actually add another worker, and that worker will also be a consumer of this queue. So now I can have a round-robin dispatch of messages, so then the workers can work in parallel. So now I can have the messages dispatch round-robin to these two workers, so then these two workers will basically do 50% of the work. And then in the future, if you need more workers, you can definitely add more to this to be a consumer of this queue, so then you can distribute the work across multiple machines. So I hope that you can see the benefit of RabbitMQ as a replacement for database polling, because RabbitMQ definitely is designed for this purpose. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. The video that you saw is a high-level design. and if you're new to RabbitMQ, it may seem very abstract. I'm confident that if you take my RabbitMQ course, that you will have all the skills that you need to implement that design. In my course, I teach you the fundamentals of messaging concepts, as well as certain message patterns that you need to know, such as how to create a store and forward queue, and how to create task queues, as well as implementing remote procedural calls. These skills are critical in leveraging RabbitMQ to improve your architecture and design. To take the course, you can go to mqmastery.com/RabbitMQ. In there, you'll be able to join the course, and I hope to see you there.